Hello everyone, it's Livy here, aka Story Minded, and I'm going to make these videos because if I don't make them, I'm not going to make them. So on my channel I have like a university playlist just to kind of document my university journey, because it'll be fun to look back on in many years in the future and be like, oh, that was a good time. So for those videos I've mainly been talking about, and I'm going to try and look at the camera today. That's my goal. That's my goal for this video. I've been talking about like my different first year assignments, and what I might do is, because I feel a bit lazy today, I'm going to like cram them all into this one video, the ones that I have left to do. I've sort of shared what I can't speak anymore, I apologise. I have talked about some of the assignments I did for first year and sort of just given people a rough idea of what I've done. So I'm going to finish with the modules that I haven't finished talking about for. That's a very poorly structured sentence. I'm an embarrassment to English and creative writing students out there. I'm not worthy. Okay. I just need to look at my phone and find the pictures because I have the questions. So one of the questions, sorry, that's a really awkward angle. So this for the third we had three assignments for why that was sorry my mind's all over the place today. That's the that's the number 3 in British Sign Language, and I don't know why I'm doing that, but anyway. What approaches to writing autobiography have most influenced your work? So we had a choice of different questions we could pick for our last assignment for true stories. That was the module where I wrote those quite personal stories about my dad and sort of that obviously everything that happened growing up with him, having Alzheimer's and sort of dealing with him passing away and all that sort of stuff. We then had to do a mini personal essay. It's kind of like if you've ever done creative writing before, it's like a reflective commentary, which is sort of breaking down your writing process and exploring how you got to your idea. So I'm trying to have a little look because I had a little bit of the introduction. So I looked at the idea of how fictional, how like even though you're writing autobiographical writing, it can sort of cross over into the non-fiction category. And I looked at the idea of using memories as creative stimulus, and there was something else that I used and I can't other fictional stimuluses such as fictional books that non-fiction books that have been used but they've been written in a fictional way. So one of the books they sort of suggested we read, and I haven't finished reading it yet, but it's a really good book, I highly recommend it. It's called Cider with Rosie by Laurie Lee, and it's kind of like him recounting his childhood, but he writes it like a story, so it's really entertaining and it kind of explores his childhood growing up. I might get this wrong because I haven't looked at it for a while. I think it's in the Cotswolds or somewhere. It's somewhere in England, and it was he was growing up either during or after the Second World War, and it was kind of like he'd never been to the countryside before. I think he came from a city, and it was kind of like, but when he was really young, he was moved to this like countryside, and it was a bit like, whoa, like this is a whole new world. Okay, so that's sort of what I did for that one. Oh, and I sort of gave examples from my own pieces of work and kind of not justified, but sort of like made connections for how those stimuluses inspired my writing for my stories about my dad for the free short stories I did. I'm not functioning. I did get more sleep last night, but I still struggled to get to sleep because once again ideas buzzing around my head. This question. This was the question that I decided to pick because I'm an idiot. It sounded really interesting and it sounded really different, and with literature I love going for the different questions. I made a mistake. I still passed, but it wasn't my best grade out of the whole year. Overall, the overall module grade is great, but for this, yeah, I got a 2-2 on this, a high 2-2, like a 57, but I'm like, that's like one of the sort of lower grades that I had for my first year. The question was, compare how and to what effect two texts studied on the unit engage with ideas of nature, the natural and the unnatural. Oh boy. I was really happy with the text I picked. I picked King Lear and Phantomina. Those were the two texts I was comparing. I just completely balls the question, if I'm being completely honest. I thought I was approaching it well, but based on the very salty comments, I must admit, from my one of my lecturers, like mega salty. She wasn't even the one I went to have a tutorial with, because you have like multiple lecturers on the same units or modules, whatever you want to call it. Oh my god, some of like that's what I've also been doing. I've been collecting feedback from every single assignment to try and improve for second year, so I'll be keeping that close at hand come second year. But halfway through, some of her comments felt so personal, it made me feel like an idiot, and I was like, I'm not even going to write this down, I'm just going to say I mucked this one up entirely. And then she would be hypocritical. She would say one thing in the overall feedback, but then with the comments on the actual piece of work, she'd be like, oh no, this whole thing is completely wrong. And it's like, but in the feedback you said that it was okay, it was a really good and strong introduction, but apparently it's not. So I was just like, basically I failed. Okay, so yeah, I'm not really going to talk much about that. But what I tried to do, I was trying to explore like parental figures in the text, rather than the children, which she made a comment about this lecturer, and she was like, oh, but it would be nice if you actually talked about the children. I was like, no, but in my introduction I've clearly said I'm talking about the parental figures, and it said children's defiance that is unnatural because they're going against that natural parental order. But apparently I didn't do enough like sort of research, and I assumed basically my essay was based on too many assumptions, which I didn't even realize I was doing. So anyway, let's move on to the last sort of update one that I'll do for this video, unless there's another one that I've just thought of. Oh, this one I love. This was for popular culture. That last one was for literary powers, Renaissance to Romanticism. This one's for popular culture, my favourite literature module by far this year. How do men-at-arms in a Game of Thrones... Such a huge fan of Game of Thrones, and I've never read Terry Pratchett, but always wanted to. This was just like a dream. I loved this question. And once again, like with the other one, we had multiple choices we could have picked from. Complicate social constructions and representations of one of the following: masculinity, femininity, sexuality, class, race, bodily identity. I went for bodily identity, and I had a great time with this question. I looked at two female characters. For men-at-arms, I looked at Angua, who is the werewolf, and for Game of Thrones, I looked at Arya, because Arya's awesome. And I just had a great time with this question, exploring their bodily identities. My lecturer, I really like my lecturer for popular culture. There's two, but both of them are great. But he gave me some really good feedback to take on board and use, and there was just sort of one little part of my essay that he was like, this is a bit problematic, but he did it in a constructively helpful way. He wasn't hurtful with it. He was just like, oh, you might want to watch this in the future. And he thought that, once again, because I always struggle with this, I have so many ideas, I find it really hard to condense them into an essay format. So he said, you'll probably benefit from longer word counts in the future, but overall he was really happy with my work. And the final update I'm going to do, because I think then I would have covered all my assignments, we had a group project to do for Unpacking Text. Unpacking Text was another essay that I really messed up, because Unpacking Text, Introduction to Critical Theory. Critical theory is so hard. It's like the bane of my life. It's just not. No. So, but luckily with this, we smashed it. We did really well on our group project, but it was so stressful trying to organise people. It was a bit of a nightmare, if I'm being completely honest. Not by the end we all came together, but if I don't mind, I can work in a group, I can work as a part of a team, but I'm highly organised. So for people to have very blasé sort of attitudes, and I appreciate that they're on different courses too, like some of them are just purely English lit, and they have all their assignments due, but I like to get the ball rolling, I like to get things moving, and it was just kind of left, and like it would always, or most of the time, some of the time it was someone else in our group, but most of the time it would fall to me to arrange meetings, and it was just really it was a stressful experience on the actual day and everything. We all came together and sorted it, but if it was me by myself, I would have had it done like months before, because that's just how I work. I can't leave it that late. So it was very anxiety inducing, and I'm glad that it worked out in the end, and I got some really positive individual feedback. You were marked as a whole group, so I was like, oh no, I hope we do okay. But I got some really positive feedback on my individual mark sheet, and yeah, so that was fine. It was like a 20-minute was it 20-minute presentation? It was a something minute presentation, and there was like 4 or 5 of us to a group. So we managed to come together, and it was fine. We had like a list of theorists that we looked at in the second half of that module, and we had to pick one of them and use their theory in comparison to one of the sort of free texts on that unit. So there was a choice of Great Expectations by Charles Dickens, Death in Venice by Thomas Mann, which we did, and Lincoln in the Bardo, which is what I did my essay on, and I was like, no, I'm not doing that again. Not the book is amazing, highly recommend the book. And I sort of came up with the idea to compare Freud's theory, the interpretation of dreams, and the uncanny, which was another part of his one of his many theories, to use those ideas and connect it to Death in Venice, to sort of analyse Oschenbach's character in Death in Venice and his sort of like fixation of Tadju. And it was really interesting. It was actually quite fun to do the presentation. As stressful as it was, it turned out okay. And it was nice to see what everyone else had done, because some other group in our class did the same text in Theorist, but they looked at different things, although we sort of had a crossover of quotes, but it was fine because obviously we'd never met, so it wasn't like planned, and they sort of looked at different stuff. So anyway, if anyone's watched this, thank you. And if you're heading towards uni in September, good luck. Bye.